From UBN Studios, you're listening to Unsugarcoated with Aalia, bringing you interviews with public figures and inspirational people speaking on self-improvement with empowering themes. And I'm your host, Aalia Lanius. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite social good talk show. We are so happy to be here today, and again, excited to bring you another incredible guest, actually a return guest, and I'm not gonna lie, one of my favorite people in the entire world, okay? This is just the truth. I can't hide it. Today, we're going to dive into the intersection of emotional intelligence, social good, and impactful leadership. We have a very special return guest for you, as I mentioned already, someone whose life's work has embodied these principles and whose impact on the world has been nothing short of extraordinary. But their approach to social good goes beyond some simple donations or charity work. Instead, they have focused on creating sustainable solutions that have a lasting impact on communities and have advocated for policies and initiatives that will make a difference for generations to come. At the heart of our guest's success is their deep understanding of emotional intelligence and its role in effective leadership. They have shown that empathy, compassion, and self-awareness are not just nice to have qualities, but are the essential for creating change and building strong relationships with others. So, with that, I want you to sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by their powerful message and their unwavering commitment to using emotional intelligence to make the world a better place. Media mogul, entrepreneur, and philanthropist Larry Namer is a man who needs no introduction, but I'll give you a little taste of his background just to get you excited. He co-founded E88 Television, one of the most successful cable networks in history, which forever changed the face of entertainment media. He's launched numerous successful media companies over the years, including Metin Global Entertainment Group, which focuses on bridging the gap between Western and Asia media cultures. But Larry's contributions to the world go far beyond his impressive business acumen. He's also a dedicated philanthropist, actively involved in numerous causes, including education, health, and the environment. Larry's work has been recognized with numerous awards and honors, including an induction into the Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame. We are thrilled to have Larry join us today to share his insights on the intersection of media and social impact and to learn more about his inspiring journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Larry Namer.
Hi, Aalia, thanks for having me. Now I got to act emotionally intelligent, I guess, right?
Yes.
But I'll try my best.
Quit it. It's funny because I've known you, had the pleasure of knowing you for several years now. And I don't think I know a more emotionally intelligent person, because I feel that when we talk about emotional intelligence, of course, we're talking about the way we understand ourselves and the way we understand the communities and the way that they work. You have been able to do this time and time again as the co-founder of E Network, Entertainment Network, and a pioneer in global content distribution. How does the media industry play a role in promoting social good, in your opinion?
There's no question about the power of media. Everybody these days talks about influencers and that kind of stuff. And somebody gave me this number that I thought was kind of astounding. On any given, if we took the top 100 influencers of pop culture in the world and you added up their influence on any given day, E Network exceeds that on any given day in much more different geographic places. I think he's now in like 142 countries. And,
wow.
And it's done things like good or bad, brought the world the Kardashians and Howard Stern and,
Talk Soup.
Talk Soup went 26 years.
Which is impressive. Not many people can say that they actually have had a show go for that long.
Yeah.
And from what I remember you telling, before, I did an interview with you on stage in the Philippine blockchain in December, but you talked about how originally they thought you were crazy.
Yeah, they when I said I wanted to do a TV show that made fun of TV shows, everybody just kind of looked at me and said, that's never going to work. And the show ran 26 years and made careers of people like Greg Kinnear.
So, and clearly they were wrong. So,
they were definitely wrong.
You've worked in both the U.S. and China, and in the process launched the first U.S.-China production company. In your opinion, what are some of the similarities and differences between the two countries' approaches to social responsibility?
With China coming out of the communist, the heavy-duty communist doctrine era, there wasn't such a thing as social responsibility the way we kind of know it. It was like, you'll just do as you're told and stuff. But that's changed dramatically. And, one of the big differences and, kind of enjoyable for me now that I've moved into the later stages of life, is there's an unbelievable respect of elders there, which you don't have here. I mean, here, kids leave for college at 17, 18 years old, and they never go home. And they don't necessarily, they barely know their parents in later life, and they don't know their grandparents. And China is totally different. Multi-generational families are the norm rather than the exception. There's this great reverence of older people and their ability to bring wisdom and experience into the picture. Very different than what it is here. And it's it's kind of fun. I've done stuff all around the world, including Russia, which... Mm-hmm. is not a very good thing to say these days. But, 85% of the makeup of people is the same no matter where you go. It's 15% that are, culturally different. The news, our news, their news, nobody likes to just give good news. It's like, today everything was good. No, that doesn't sell the news. So they have to show the negative side and stuff. I mean, you go to China, for the most part, they're very similar to us. What they want for their children, education and arts and things like that, is very, very similar. And you got to stop confusing people with governments. Governments have very different doctrines. When I 100%. Talk to folks, that work for us in China, and most of them educated in the West and have gone back, and I say, doesn't it bother you that, you can't get Facebook and stuff? And they were like, give me your computer. And I said, why? They type something in, they go, here, try your Facebook. And it works. I go, how did you do that? They go, look, they pretend they're blocking us. We don't rub it in their face, and we learn to coexist. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, again, regular everyday people are not affected in the ways that, our news likes to portray they are. Now, I'm not saying that it's good, but it's not as bad as we portray it.
Right. I love that you say that, because especially, and I want to go into emotionally intelligent, the projects you take on, I know that you are working on one that's specifically speaking to Asian hate, this increase in violence. And that's exactly why I think it's important to dispel those thoughts, because you can't be attacking just everyday people thinking, you're taking it out on a government.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, when COVID hit, and our then president decided that this was the China flu, it created an unbelievable amount of resentment and hate among people. And, unfortunately, Americans don't differentiate Asians. So if you're Asian, you're all Chinese, so they don't look and say, oh, that's a Thai person, that's a Vietnamese person, or whatever. And, even though, I think it's wrong to call it the China flu. Yes, it originated in China, but giving it that name, it seemed to kind of open the door for people to openly hate. Where, not saying that they didn't hate before and didn't have prejudices, but they kind of held it within, and it was in check. But then as soon as that happened, it kind of was like a license to kill. It's like, okay, you could do whatever you want and say whatever you want to Asian people. And I think the numbers, I've seen varying numbers, but hate crimes, physical hate crimes against Asian people, since that was declared to be the China flu, have gone up anywhere between 400 and 800%.
Wow.
So it's like really crazy. I mean, I have a gal that I mentored at USC. She was in film school, or business school, I'm sorry. And she ended up getting married to a Chinese guy who also was here. He had not one master's degree, but two. He's now over at Riot Games and in some executive position. He's really smart in business and finance. And, they got a little kid, and I'm the godfather of the little kid. Who's adorable. He's a little kid. And, she'll go to the supermarket and people will scream at her, go back to your country, go back to your country. And I'm going, okay, he's got 2 master's degrees, she's got 1. If I suggest how they could save money on their taxes, they won't do it because they think that they have an obligation to pay their fair share. They work, they're into educating their children, and, they're everything that you'd want a citizen to be, but people are yelling at them, go back to your country. I mean, it's just crazy.
I think that's why talking about it is so important, and creating development. So you have a documentary project that I think is coming up. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's my pro bono project, and I kind of say these days I'm on my Kardashians repentance tour, so I only do good. And yeah, we're doing a documentary that's really meant to show, the craziness of some of what's going on there and stuff like that. And hopefully educate people to the fact that, if you think the Chinese government did it, okay, whether you believe it or not is not the issue. But the people that are living here, that are working and going to school and, doing that, they're not the enemy. And
Right.
You shouldn't treat them. I mean, if you really look at the history of this country, we're a country of immigrants.
Right.
I mean,
Of
my
course.
grandparents were immigrants from both sides.
Right.
Immigrants, waves of immigrants change. We had the Irish and then the Italians and the Asians and the Middle Eastern and the Japanese and stuff. Immigrants are what made this country what it is, and we
Right.
should be celebrating it as opposed to trying to send it back.
Right. In fact, I love your sweatshirt, and we're going to give a love shout out to Richie Rich, because I know you wore it, and it says, for our audio audience, it says, "Let yourself be who you are."
Yeah.
Tell
It's Richie, very famous designer within, he really came up with streetwear and stuff like that. And he's dressed everybody from Madonna to Pam Anderson to Gaga, Katy Perry, Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
Richie is a clear member of the LGBTQI plus community, and he probably falls more into the plus category. He's a one of a kind. And I'm working with Richie and some other folks to create a communications and content vehicle for that community so that they have a comfortable place that they can go and talk to people who look alike, think alike, and I call it the Mickey Mouse Club for the gay community.
And you're so driven towards technological advances. Like you do, yes, people know you for the film and TV, but you're so drawn also to, NFTs, blockchain, Web3. Why, as you observe this transition, what stands out to you the most?
Well, I've always been more about looking for what's going to be next as opposed to what was. And, you look at, all the new stuff going on with crypto and NFTs and metaverse and stuff. This is inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen whether the studios like it or not. And it really does. It democratizes media and investment in media and stuff. So I'm working with a bunch of folks who created this thing called the NFT Award, the Nifties.
Yes.
If you think back, when film started out, everybody went, "Oh, do you really think people are going to go to some place to watch those things? They don't talk." And then you have the Academy Awards and the Academy, and then television came, and people said, who's going to buy that little box? And the NFT world and the metaverse are going to happen. Just from an artist or creator point of view, if I'm an artist and, I create a painting and sell it to you for $100. Okay, so I got $100. You sell it to someone else for $1,000.
Yeah.
I still got $100. You made all the money on my creation.
Exactly.
The person you sold it to sells it to the Getty Museum for $1 million. I'm sitting there with my $100.
Right.
So in the NFT world, and things get recorded on the blockchain, every time that changes hands, I get another 10%.
Right.
So I'm sharing in the revenue stream. As a creative person, how do you not want that?
Right. In a continuation of that, you've been recognized for your work in the entertainment industry multiple times and your contributions to various social causes. What are some of the charitable causes that you are most passionate about, and why are they important to you?
Well, I was doing a big charity in Russia up until this year. It was 31 years we were doing this thing called the White Nights Festival. And we raised money for the orphanage and children's hospital and stuff. This year, obviously, for certain reasons, we're not doing it. I'm doing a lot of programming. I just finished doing a series about financial wellness for millennials. Talk about emotional intelligence, with that one. It was my daughter. Well, first when somebody pitched me the idea, I was like, that sounds kind of boring. But then my daughter, who was getting married, comes and said, "Hey, Dad, what's a prenup?" And I'm like, how do you not know what a prenup is? Don't they teach you anything in school? And the fact is, no, they don't teach them anything in school.
Right.
So after I said, okay, talk to the family lawyer, he'll explain it. And, her next thing was, well, how do I explain this to AJ without him thinking that I'm not going into this marriage like it's forever? So I realized how much emotional stuff. So I really started digging in, and more than half of the divorces in this country are somehow related to money. The husband doesn't make enough to support the kids. The wife thinks he's lazy, or she makes more money than he does. And, there's a lot of money issues. A lot of the fights all revolve around money. So created a series around actually an Egyptian woman from Canada who's technically a woman of color. Yes. And she is a certified financial planner. and we're doing a thing. It deals with not just the EQ but the IQ of financial wellness, really geared at millennials. Now I'm doing another one. It's called Conscious Parenting, and it's a woman named Catherine Sellery. And if your bottom line is, if their kids are people, treat them like that.
Right.
As opposed to when I grow up, as children should be seen and not heard.
Yep.
It's a total different thing. And you look at parenting these days, it's become so much more complex. So, and then you have bullying, you have school shootings, you have gender ID issues. It's a complex world, and it's really meant to show that, there's a different way to be dealing with your kids than the way we used to.
You have always exhibited such an open mind, and you have a multicultural background yourself. I love that that's the type of things that you're drawn to. In all the many years that you've been in this industry, have you noticed any changes how media is used to promote social good?
Yeah, I think, if you look at things today, and by no means am I saying things are perfect the way they should be,
sure.
but you look at it, from when I got involved, people on TV, it's much more diverse. Not just the people that are in front of the camera, but the people behind the camera, the subject matters being used. It's improved. It's not where it needs to be, but it's certainly improving. And sometimes things just take time,
right.
and time and, making people aware that there's a problem that needs to be solved. It doesn't happen overnight, but as long as it's going in the right direction, I think we're good.
When you reflect back on all the different projects that you've worked on, like which one can you say, or which one can you be like, that's definitely something I'm glad I did?
Actually, for me, it's an easy one because I've thought this one out. People always expect me to say, E. Yes, in a lot of ways, E is by far the most known thing. But when I was in China, I realized that there was this phenomenon there, and I call it the contradictions among Chinese life. It's what happens when you have incredible economic growth in a very short period of time,
right? And
people's social skills don't grow as quick as their bank account. I mean, I think we saw it, with the Russians, wearing the Gucci this and Prada that, and all that. If you have money, wear it. In China, you started to see the same thing. When you come out of that post-communist where everybody needs to look the same, be the same. And now all of a sudden you could make money and you could have it. Everybody wants to show it. So I wrote, and I never wrote comedy in my life, but I wrote a comedy there about the contradictions. And my partner in China loved the story. He said, I want to take it to the TV station. We went, she did, and she came back and said, they love it and they want to meet the writer. And we organized a dinner, and, the guy came in. And I understand enough Mandarin to understand, him talking to her in Mandarin going, no, I want to meet the writer. This is a white guy. I'm like going, you think so? And he goes, no, I didn't mean any offense. He says, but when I read it, I just assumed it was written by somebody who was Chinese because of the insight. We ended up doing 72 episodes of this thing called Return to the Village of Good Fortune. And it ended up getting nominated at the Asia TV Awards in the Best Comedy category.
Wow.
And, for me, that was interesting. We didn't win, but it was the only comedy from China that was nominated.
And
I said, okay, figuring out that people around the world like Hollywood gossip, okay, we executed that one pretty good. But to write a comedy for the first time in a country that I didn't grow up with, in a culture that I didn't grow up with, and for it to be the most important comedy to come out of China. Right. I said, this is the funniest TV show in China is written by a New York Jew. I mean, there's an irony in that.
Exactly. I want to kind of step back to something you said earlier about millennials and young people being educated on things. I love that you brought that up because I want to kind of ask your input or your thoughts, because I talk to a lot of people that they think that the education system is going to give their kids all that they need, right? You very much tell people you've got to go outside of the system and learn in order to, because they don't teach the taxes. They don't teach, different, like they don't teach the different tax advantages of this or that or corporation entrepreneurship. They're starting to now. But I mean, what are some of the most important resources you think people, whether by themselves or parents, should be pushing their kids towards so that they do develop those knowledge and those skills?
Well, I think, let's start with the education system. And I think a lot of the problems that we have in this country really somehow relate back to, our decreasing the kinds of education. We kind of took out learning instruments and learning language. We took out a lot of that stuff. And I think we're paying a price for that now. We don't have, the kids are not as well-rounded as they used to be and stuff. But there's now programs where people are starting. There's actually a group out of Canada called Devon Academy. I'm on the board of that. And they have created these courses on, emotional intelligence. And they're now going out to colleges and businesses who are realizing that, these are skills that people have to have. It's not just learning, here's the mechanics of how you do it. You have to really have that empathy and know how to relate to other people in the workplace. It needs to work its way back into our systems. So it's not something that you wait until you're an adult and you pick up. We got to start teaching this stuff when kids are like little.
And it's interesting because the shift now for a lot of younger kids growing up in a home, they're not getting paper routes. They're not going and cutting the neighbor's yard. Girls are not, and I don't mean to like be sexist in any way, but they're not cleaning the bathrooms. Now you have house cleaners doing it. So you don't have as much resourcefulness, I kind of feel, or certain things. So yeah, if you don't have that, then you're not getting it. And to your point, like them cutting out media and the arts and music, you're seeing more anxiety in kids. And these are, whether people want to recognize the arts as being effective and supportive to people or an outlet, like they should definitely keep supporting it. And it's been sad to see them take so many away. Yeah.
And, when you look at like the one I'm doing with Catherine, this conscious parenting and stuff, I mean, we deal with those issues. You look at now, when I grew up, you used to go outside and play with your friends, and you had friends that were real friends.
Right.
And, now, everybody's on social media and stuff, and they don't interact. And, there's dangers to, you can't go out and play in the park like you used to and walk to school and stuff like that. And these kids, are under this false impression. They go, oh, I'm so popular, I have 5,000 friends. When the fact of the matter is they really have no friends. So, we got to learn how to deal with that. I mean, not that you cut social media out. It does have its value.
Right.
But there's got to be this balance there that you got to live real life as well as virtual life or digital life.
Agreed. Yeah, because Discord and Roblox, and unfortunately, sometimes kids are developing relationships with people that they don't even know who they are. They think they're talking to another kid, but they're talking to sometimes a predator, and you've seen a lot of things happen. So I
as a parent, you gotta you gotta learn how to manage that. You don't take it away, but you got to learn how to manage it effectively and have the kid understand how to use social media in a positive way as opposed to some of the stuff that goes on now.
I'm going to ask you, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on live TV? Has anything?
Well, I don't really do, well, as you know, I'm a little bit of a hermit and stuff, and it's, my publicist actually cracks up because I have a publicist that I pay to keep me out of the press.
Right.
So I don't really have things embarrassing on live TV because I don't do it very often. I'll do interviews, and pretty much you could ask me anything, and I, whether I have the right answer or the wrong answer, I have an answer.
Yeah.
So not really, no real embarrassing moments there. In the media world, I do have, some things like when my partner Alan at E said, oh, my friend Paula wants to come on and host. And I'm going, that Paula Abdul, why would we let her host? I messed that one up. Ryan Seacrest, interviewed a few times. And I'm like, Ryan, you're a nice boy, but maybe we should think of accounting. So I've had my share of faux pas.
Right.
And stuff, but nothing terrible.
Right. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
For me, it's kind of an odd question. It would. I'd love to own my own restaurant, and be able to cook without really having to put in the time and the stress that goes into owning a restaurant.
So a bit of Bewitched, just
a little bit of Bewitched, and I don't know if you call that a superpower, but it's one thing. I love cooking, and it's kind of my stress relief, and instead of having to go to a psychiatrist and lay on a couch, I go in the kitchen and cook. So
I know. And you cook amazingly. Like I've talked about, it's such a therapy. But I mean, on top of it, you cook. If you opened a restaurant, I'd have to eat there every day. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to do anything else. And I know you have a cookbook in you somewhere. Everyone's been trying to get you to do one. You also have the film Empress that's been in production. This is a feature film that you've been working on.
It's actually, we've now changed it to a series.
Okay,
like
that's
a
right.
Game of Thrones
Yes.
approach, yeah.
What do you hope, because I know that the film does have some addressing social issues, but what impact do you hope that it will have on, and just to give everyone else, I mean, it is based on the only female emperor of China.
Yeah.
And, so having a story like that right now, and definitely a time when people are, we're trying to recognize women for their contribution to the world, not just now, but also historically, like what is the impact that you hope this type of feature film will have?
Actually, we had to change it from a feature film.
Right.
Because her story is just so big and expansive that in a 2-hour feature film, we never really developed the characters the way we wanted to.
Right.
So, now with COVID, while obviously it's not a good thing, it really has led to the rise of the streamers. Mm-hmm. I mean, and not just Netflix dominating the world. You now have HBO Plus and Paramount
Hulu,
Plus and Disney and Hulu. And it's really open for creative people. It's really opened up the palette that we get to paint against. And, in China, Empress Wu was thought of, as this great historical. She's the George Washington of China. In our story, we really give it that Hollywood twist. So it's really about a woman's struggle to make it in a male-dominated society. And she is still considered to this day as residing over the greatest era of prosperity in the history of China.
Wow.
Whether, they changed the education system, the finance system, literally everything changed during her reign there. And it's very much about the woman and, her getting there despite everybody, wishing her ill.
I mean, I don't know how you do it, to be quite honest, why you think on that. Like every time, I mean, there's more things going on. You don't stop. I know you're not taking up golf.
And, these days I'm really happy to be working with Richie Rich. And, Richie sold his brand. He had Heather Ed, he sold Damon John, and he stayed out of the fashion world for a while. So, and he's just one of the most wonderful, sweetest folks around. So I'm helping him start his new brand, which will be not just a clothing brand, but he's going to start a makeup line. Mm-hmm. And so I'm helping him get that stuff done. I don't want to run big companies anymore. It's just, it gets to the point where I don't do what I like doing, and I spend all my time in boardrooms and dealing with finance and budgets. And so, I like what I'm doing now, which is, really being, owning small pieces of a lot of different companies. So, like, every day I could do something different. And I'm not ADD, but, in some senses I am, I guess.
I definitely am. So I love it. And I love that you're able to still do that and be such a representation of that it, like, I mean, people often are like, oh, there's a limit, that limiting belief of, oh, I only have so much time. And granted, none of us know how much time we're going to have. Yeah. But you do have the power to make the most of it, and you seem to continue doing that.
I mean, we're doing, the stuff I mentioned here in the U.S. and in China. We've actually taken on new dimension. I don't know if you've seen here things like immersive Van Gogh and Klimt and Nutcracker.
Of course.
So we're actually bringing those into China, and it really does change, bringing to China an understanding of the West and Western culture. Mm-hmm. Before COVID, we were working on something to explain Chinese culture to Americans that, we had to put on hold because we couldn't film anymore and stuff like that. So those kind of projects, I mean, for me, are fun.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And last question, but what has really been your driving force? Like, what's been the flame under you that has pushed you forward? I mean, everyone out there in the world, like we all are looking to get our shot in. Like we come to those moments and it's making or breaking us, or, or we keep going. But like we have that fire. What has been the driving force for you all these years?
Other than my mother dropping me on my head. Just, being there first, finding what's coming next before everybody else. Yeah, I always talk about Rupert Murdoch being the devil. So I like to get there before Rupert wakes up. Whether it be in, new technologies, whether it be in new places to do business. And, Asia's been great. And, my time in Russia has been great. Probably Africa will be next, it's my guess. And, doing that. And then I just love all the new technology stuff. And I'm very, very excited about holograms. Not so much for entertainment, but I love holograms for education, where we could find the best teachers in the world of any subject you could think of, and we could create holographic images of them and beam them into universities across the world, and they would speak the language of the country they're in. And what it does is it really levels the playing field in education, where, a kid who's going to Harvard is going to be taught by the same professors as a kid who might be in a college in Nairobi.
Right, which is extremely important, especially when we talk about equity. And, I mean, we've talked about this, I think, when we were at the Web3 conference, and I know I've spoken about it before, but I love the concept. People are so afraid of the metaverse. They're like, my kid's never going to get out of virtual world. They're not going to be able to tell. And, there's a conversation there that I understand people want, the way we consume technology. But I think it's so exciting, to your point. Like the kid in Compton can have an experience at the Louvre through the metaverse that the kid from Beverly Hills can, on a trip. And why is that so important? Is because these experiences enrich us and they create more emotional intelligence because you have a different perspective to have.
And it brings about a commonality of thought, regardless. So yes, where you grow up is going to have some impact, but it's really a small piece of who you are. It's all the other stuff. It's your basic humanity, which pretty much is the same all over.
Yeah, no, so true, so true. Well, I love that. I know you're constantly posting amazing food on Facebook and IG. Where can people go? Where should they go if they want to support you and stay connected?
For my Facebook page. I actually do my Facebook page myself. I will admit that some of the other ones I don't do myself. People are...
Well, I don't know how you would have time to.
But my Facebook, I like doing it. Yeah. And it's really a way for me to learn because I get to communicate with people without going to jail. Right. And kind of learn how people feel about things and do things. So, yeah.
Just with everything happening now, what's the message that you have? What should... Yeah.
Well, I think, all this hate stuff is just so... It's based more on ignorance than anything else. I mean, again, most people have stop confusing governments with the people who live in these countries because they're not the same thing. And realize that, people are more like us or you than you might think.
Of course. What divides us is an illusion. So
that's for sure.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much for being here today and coming back in. Last time we had you on Zoom because of the pandemic. So amazing to have you in the studio today. And I know we continue to work on stuff. Actually, as the audience knows, we shot our pilot episodes with the live studio audience. You're helping us to also try to get that off the ground. But in the meantime, you continue to support us and support the world in such a beautiful way. And I just want you to know I thank you and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our audience at home, as we come to the end of this interview with Mr. Larry Namer, I'm struck by the impact that one person can have on the entire world. Larry's journey is one of creativity, innovation, and dedication to making a difference. From co-founding E88 Television to his work with the Global Education Fund, Larry has consistently pushed the boundaries of what's possible and has sought to make a positive impact on the world. He's a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference and that does not matter our backgrounds or our circumstances. I hope this interview has inspired you to think about the impact that you can make in your own life, in your own community, whether it's through your career or your personal relationships. There are countless opportunities to create a positive change in the world. Thank you so much for being part of this episode today, and I hope that you will continue to work on yourself. Don't forget to stay connected with us. You can go to www.unsugarcoatedmedia.com, subscribe to our newsletter, stay in the know of what's going on with us. We will see you next time, and in the meantime, thanks for letting us be unsugarcoated. Take care. See you next time.